In this next module, I'm going to share with you some of the most essential things that you're going to need to provision both your reading workshop and your writing workshop. And I will share mostly traditional things that you'll need to get started in a physical classroom, but also a few alternative ideas for virtual options along the way. As you get started teaching your reading workshop, there are a handful of some non negotiable things that you will need. First, you will need book bags or bins for students to keep their weekly independent reading books. Sometimes these are also used to send books home to and from school so that students have plenty of books to read at home as well. They are also going to need reader's notebooks. These come in the form of composition notebooks in grades 3 through 6 for doing some stopping and jotting and writing about their reading. Kids, as well as yourself, are also going to need post its. Even in kindergarten, students begin using Post-its to stop and jot about their reading. You will likely need many regular-sized Post-its in all different colors for both students to use, and oftentimes they'll have their own stack of Post-its that they keep with their notebooks and books. You will also need large and small Post-its for your own teaching and teaching charts, in addition to chart paper. Oftentimes, the Post-it brand chart paper is particularly awesome because it sticks to surfaces and you don't need magnets. For virtual teaching, you'll just need some plain paper, smaller Post-its, and definitely a document camera for displaying your charts and other things during your mini lessons. Alternatively, you could use the pre-made charts that are available in your Heinemann resources and either print them out or share your screen. In K1, you'll also need manila envelopes, which kids will be using as their reading mats. They'll use these as they learn to make reading plans and stack their books up in the order in which they will read them, and then transfer them from one side to the other as they reach each book in their stack. Finally, and most importantly, you will need a classroom library filled with lots of books that kids love, and I will say more about that soon. In K2, each student will need some type of individual book bag or bin. I will link some of these options in the supporting document that you can find with these videos. One option is these sturdy Velcro bags that you see on the left, and these last quite a while. You could also use canvas totes like on the right, which could be decorated with school logos, student names, or any other creative idea. Another great thing about these is that they're washable. You could even just use large gallon Ziplocs. Those are perfectly fine as well. Alternatively, students could have plastic cubbies where they store these items, especially if you have a cubby storage unit to keep them in. Essentially, students just need somewhere to store their weekly reading materials and potentially something that could travel to and from school if you send books home regularly. In grades 3 through 6, students need something that serves the same purpose. You could use the same thing as K2, or another option is book bins, like you see in the image on the far right, made of plastic that hold their books, notebooks, and any other reading tools like Post its, pens, charts, etc. Plastic pouches work great as well. In K1 or even K2, you could use a cubby system like this with different colored cubbies. If you have a system like this, you can excuse students to go get their book bins as they go off to read by table color to avoid a classroom traffic jam, as I like to call it, on the way to get their books. Alternatively, you could spread your students' book bins around the room so that students go to get their books from different places rather than grabbing them all from the same congested space in your classroom. Another really great thing to make sure that you provision yourself with, especially for K1 teachers, is either a 1/2 inch to 1 inch, probably at the most, binders for each student. So these can be used to store things like poems, songs, and charts that the kids can read at the beginning of the school year in particular. For example, you can include poems or songs that they've learned in phonics workshop or other poems and songs that they've been learning in the class with you. You could also include charts that they can read to warm up or their Snapboard lists. Any other things that they could read that you could add to their reading bins could live in these binders. You could also include any class books that you create together in shared or interactive writing. And this could be additional reading material on top of their books, or this could be their reading material, especially at the very beginning of the year. As I mentioned, one of the most important things that you can do to provision your classroom for Reading Workshop is to have a robust and beautiful classroom library that matches the interests and the levels of the students in our classrooms. As we create them, there are a few things that we can think about. We want to make them cozy. We want to make them beautiful. We want to make them inviting. So I like to think, how could I make this like a bookstore? I try to imagine Chaucer's and I try to make my classroom library feel like Chaucer's. So this means that also in our classroom libraries, the books change every so often. We want to make sure that we're refreshing them throughout the year for different units, different studies. We want to put out newly released books that are going to get kids excited, just like when you walk into the bookstore and they have a display of all the most recent releases. We also want to make sure that the books constantly match students' levels. So as students move up throughout the year, the books in your library might also offer different options that match your students' reading levels. The way that we organize books could happen in a number of different ways. We can organize by level, we can organize by topic, we can organize by genre and author. In K2, it does help to have leveled bins in order to guide their shopping, which can be a bit more of a challenge for our earliest readers. In addition to topic, genre, author, and series bins. So it's important that even in K1, K2, while it's nice to have bins that are specific to their reading levels, it's also important to have bins that are more genre, author, or topic based so that kids learn to go to the library and first think about the types of books that they want to read and then think about what is a just right fit for them. You can teach kids to check the inside or wherever it says the book level to make sure that it is a good fit. In 3rd through 6th grade, most bins should be by topic, author, genre, or series. You can get creative with the bins, naming them by unique categories like books with strong female characters. You might even have your students sort the books in your library into categories that they find and have them organize the library. For virtual teaching and learning, also don't forget about the virtual classroom libraries that can be found on the Literacy Lounge under Books, 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 which is another great resource for books at your students' independent reading levels. You can also tap into your school library and the Santa Barbara Public Library by visiting the digital library website, which has been shared by Jamie Allison and will be linked in the supporting document for this module as well. As you think about provisioning your writing workshop now, there are some specific things that you will want to have as well. You will need writing folders, plastic typically, with pockets, and these are often ordered for sites K through 6. Students will also need writing notebooks in grades 3 through 6, where they will do a lot of their idea generating and trying out different strategies. Another thing that they will undoubtedly need is pen. Felt tip are a favorite, but it is ultimately up to you and your students' preference. In Writer's Workshop, we use pens instead of pencils so that we're able to see students' revisions. If they use pencil, it can be hard to see how they've revised as they tend to erase and do over. It's important to see the different iterations of their work, and the pen allows for this. Like Reading Workshop, you will also need chart paper and many different colors and sizes of Post-its. In the brick and mortar classroom, you traditionally will have a writing center where you will house all of your tools and things that students will need during writing time. You, as a teacher, do not want to be the gatekeeper of all of these materials. They should be in a space where students can locate the things they will need themselves and know how to do so. That will require some teaching on your part. In your writing center, you will need to think about what kinds of things students might need as they are writing. This could include, but is not limited to, different paper options, especially in grades K2 or 3. So some paper with more or less lines, some with smaller or larger spaces for pictures, some loose pages, and some stapled into booklets already. You'll need to think about the writers that are in your classroom. You'll also want to have tools for revision work. This can include different colored pens, to make revision work novel and exciting. You could also have Post-its or strips of paper for kids to tape or glue onto their work as they revise. You also will then want to have tape or glue sticks nearby and show them how to do this before you put these things out. You'll want extra pens, ink does run out, and clipboards for students who write in different parts of the room, not at desks. You'll want to keep copies also of your mentor texts that you're using to teach. Students should be able to access these during writing time so that they can refer to them and use them as tools as they write. This is also a place where you could keep and should keep your students' writing charts, so the current writing charts that you're using in your mini lessons, and other tools that students may need to write. You could have the current chart up on the wall and smaller copies of past charts available for them to look at as well as you graduate these from your wall space to make room for more current charts instead. You may also have student writing exemplars in this area that you possibly have already annotated as a class that students could refer to as they write. If teaching remotely, it's fun to think about how we could set up a virtual writing center as well. Ways we can house all of these things for our students to access independently during writing time. Maybe it's in your Google Classroom or in Seesaw, and you could have links to mentor texts being read aloud that kids could refer to and return to, links to PDFs of different paper choices to be printed out at home for families who have printers, or charts and PDFs of the charts that they could use during writing time. We can still have writing centers for our kids, even from a distance. Another thing to consider as you set up for both reading and writing workshops is having flexible seating options. While this may not be possible for a while, even when we return to the classroom at some point, hopefully we can return to a time when this is possible. For that reason, I'll still share some ideas about flexible seating. Flexible seating spots could rotate on a weekly basis, students chosen at random for various spots, or names picked and then kids get to choose their spot. One fun idea that I learned from a fellow teacher is that you can have students name their spots. This is a super fun way to build your classroom community, and the kids come up with the silliest names for the places around the room that they could read. As you create different spaces, try to think about the different types of learners in your class and try to have spaces for each of them. This could include floor cushions, bean bags, dog beds make great reading spots, standing desks, potato chip chairs that are made of plastic and shaped like potato chips that kids can rock back and forth in. A traditional chair at a desk might be great for some students. Having both inside and outside options, couches that you can get donated, the options are endless, and I encourage you to get creative. As we eventually transition back to the classroom in some way, one idea for the time being is to get various beach chairs in different colors and designs that could be set up outside during reading or writing time and spread apart. Each kid could have their own beach chair that they sit in during reading or writing. So, those are the different ways that I encourage you to provision yourselves, your classroom, your students for reading and writing workshop. For any of the links that I mentioned, you can visit the Literacy Lounge website. If you go under the Professional Development tab and then Introduction to Workshop PD, you'll find the Intro to Workshop supporting document. And there you'll find all the links mentioned in this module as well as all of the others. And in order for us to always improve, I do encourage you also to provide feedback using this QR code to give us some information about how this went for you and how we could do it even better. So thank you, and we'll see you soon.